I'm going to make sure I have security because I know I have had attempts on my life and I have too much work to do. There are too many people that need help right now for me to allow that. So if I end up spending $200,000, if I spend $10 more on it, you know what? I get to be here to do the work. So suck it up, and defunding the police has to happen. We need to defund the police and put that money into social safety nets because we're trying to save lives. I have private security because my body is worth being on this planet right now. I have private security because the white supremacist, racist narrative that they drive into this country.
And while the progressives continue to call for slashing police budgets, violent crime continues to surge in liberal cities like Atlanta, New York, LA, Portland, and Philadelphia. I don't know how Chicago didn't make that list, but let's add Chicago just for good measure. Greg, an obvious and predictable contradiction.
Yes, this is like saying marijuana should be illegal except for me because I'm a leader and pot helps me deal with the press. Right? So this is her anger and incoherence is born from an outrage that she feels that she's being threatened, and maybe she is, but she should join the club and she should translate that outrage to empathy. She is now like everyone in New York City. She's like the elderly ladies who feel terrified when they're on the subway, right? Or the shop clerks or the delivery men or the bicycle messengers or anybody who risks their lives when they go out on the street these days and become victimized. She should now understand the people, the shop owners, the bodega owners who lost their businesses and their careers in the riots, in the turmoil, in the fires, in the looting. She says that her life depends on the security and her life is worth it. I agree. But why the hell don't you feel the same way for your constituents, right? You can't just say, I get security, you don't. Because that's, in effect, what she is saying.
And one of the ways that she does that is through campaign contributions. That's how she pays for it. And the regular moms and pops, you don't have a campaign and a financial election report, finance report that you have to turn in.
If we defund police, anybody for defunding police should lose their security.
Well, that's got to be interesting, and that might be a good attack. I mean, it worked in New York City, Jesse, for Eric Adams, who was not for defunding the police. It was supposed to be this big lesson for Democrats to learn. And just yesterday, we talked about the head Democrat who's in charge of the House trying to keep the majority, saying, guys, we're in trouble here. And then today, they make her the biggest star in the Democratic Party.
It's such an easy lesson to learn. Just open your eyes. Days after David Dorn was shot and killed in St. Louis, she called for defunding the police. And St. Louis defunded the police $4 million. In 2020, they had the highest homicide rate in 50 years, and murders are surging in St. Louis County this year. It is a tough neighborhood where she is from. I've traveled to Watts, South Central, Detroit, North Philly. That district that she's in St. Louis was the toughest neighborhood I've ever been to.
Really?
They welcomed me with
East Cleveland.
with open arms. Yes, but it was tough. I do have to blame the people of St. Louis. They're the ones who voted her in, and they basically took a loudmouth off the streets and put her into Congress. She's a professional protester. She cut her teeth in the Ferguson deal. Mike Brown, hands up, don't shoot. That was a lie, but she launched her career after that. She was out in front of the McCluskeys' home with a bullhorn screaming, "You can't stop the revolution." And she actually praised Antifa for all the work that they did in Ferguson. Remember, Ferguson burned to a crisp. Then she said if the January 6 rioters were black, they would have been shot dead. There was someone that was shot dead, Ashley Babbitt, who was white. So I looked at her profile on social media. It's a mess. She does the pronouns there with the she and the her. It's all for attention. She calls Trump a white supremacist president. She's on Netflix in a Squad documentary. Come on. And everything she says is about racism. She's like a robot for racism. You push the button, racism, boring.
Well, that was some good commentary.
Thank you, Dana.
Taking on one of the things that she's really having a moment this week because the House of Representatives didn't extend this eviction moratorium because moderate members were like, we're not going to do this. We don't think it's right. Even Biden says this is not legal. Pelosi says we're not going to do this. Then all of a sudden, she camped out on the steps of the Capitol and demanded that they do something that they know is not legal. And they just elevated her again.
Right. She also is, because she's competing with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Rashida Tlaib, she has to ratchet up the insanity. She has to, turn up the lunitude to get more headlines and attention. So, because AOC said we need to abolish our carceral system. So she wants to get rid of the prison system. Rashida Tlaib, no more policing, no more incarceration. So what Congressman Bush is doing is she essentially is coming out and saying, to Greg's point, I need to be safe and secure and protected so I can ensure that you are not safe and secure and protected. My life is more valuable, she says, than a black child or an elderly Asian woman or Hispanic mother or a white father. She is literally saying, it's her version of let them eat cake. Instead, it's let them eat lead.
Nice.
Geraldo, it's going to be hard for the Democrats who are campaigning in swing districts to say that no one in the Democratic Party is calling for defund the police when she is literally like the new star of the Democratic Party.
The beauty of her remarks and the revelation that she has private security is that it proves the point. It proves the point that cops are so necessary. The defund the police movement is the most ill-advised, cockamamie idea ever. It is absolutely rebounded very negatively against those who proposed it, and it is absurd on its face. She knows it. That's why she has private security. Her constituents need what she has. I go back to this often, and I think it's so important. I want people to listen. There is a ghetto civil war. There are guns, so many guns on the street, and these gangbangers and the dope business have become the most toxic environment you could possibly have. That's why in St. Louis, Baltimore, Detroit, New Orleans, Kansas City, Memphis, Cleveland, D.C., Cincinnati, Buffalo, Newark, Chicago, come on. They are in denial. You have to recognize that the constituents, the people, are imperiled. They are imperiled by a statistic on crazy that young black men are dying from homicide more than any other cause. What is this going on here? What is she talking about?
Who's going to sleep on the steps of the Capitol for the victims of all these crimes?
Well, this is, everything that Geraldo said is so important, but I do feel like when she talks on behalf of these people, that like this is for them, it's theater. It's merely a vessel for her to gain power. Once this idea of fighting for the rights of the people out of power, once she has power, what did she do?
Exactly.
She dismantled some of the basic things that we want, which is security, and makes it for herself. That is the recipe of a radical, right? Once they get into power, the totalitarian urge takes over and screws everybody that they claim to help. She doesn't care about her constituents. She's got a security detail and God knows what else.
Well, stay with us. President Biden and Vice President Harris are speaking at a bill signing to award the U.S. Capitol Police Congressional Gold Medals. We will listen in and be right back.
Doug and I watched with absolute shock as our Capitol was under siege and the people within it afraid for their lives. What we know now is in the midst of that violent attack, there were countless acts of courage. And we are here today in the Rose Garden at the White House to recognize that courage. The officers of the United States Capitol Police and the D.C. Metropolitan Police risked their own lives to save the lives of others, both on January 6th and on April 2nd. They sacrificed so much to defend our nation. And in securing our Capitol, they secured our democracy. These officers are heroes. And these officers are patriots. And they deserve, today and every day, this honor. Our nation is grateful for your service. And now there are some officers who, of course, continue to suffer from the injuries seen and unseen. And I want to make it clear that you know that you are not alone and that we all stand with you. And of course, there are other officers who tragically lost their lives. There is nothing that we can do to bring these officers back or to take away the pain their families feel now. But it is my prayer that their sacrifice will serve as a constant reminder of the work we must all do together, of the vigilance we must have in order to protect our democracy. So I returned to the Senate at around 8 p.m. the night of January 6th. And we gathered in the Senate chamber, in the same chamber where the New Deal was struck and the Great Society was forged, in the same chamber where the interstate highway system was started and voting rights were won. And in that chamber, just before 1 a.m., as officers stood guard, the final vote was tallied. Democrats, independents, and Republicans came together and upheld the vote and the voice of the American people. As those officers continued, even at that late hour, to secure our Capitol, they secured our democracy. So let us never forget that. And let us always remember their courage. And now, it is my great honor to introduce a true champion for all those who serve in uniform, President Joe Biden.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Vice President Harris. Folks, not even during the Civil War did insurrectionists breach the Capitol of the United States of America, the citadel of our democracy. Not even then. But on January the 6th, 2021, they did. They did. A mob of extremists and terrorists launched a violent and deadly assault on the People's House, on the sacred ritual to certify a free and fair election. It wasn't dissent. It wasn't debate. It wasn't democracy. It was insurrection. It was riot and mayhem. It was radical and chaotic. And it was unconstitutional, and maybe most important, it was fundamentally un-American. An existential threat and a test of whether our democracy could survive, whether it could overcome lies and overcome the fury of a few who were seeking to thwart the will of the many. While the attack on our values and our votes shocked and saddened the nation, our democracy did survive. It did. Truth defeated lies. We did overcome. And that's because of the women and men of the U.S. Capitol Police, the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department, and other law enforcement officials who we honor today. Speaker Pelosi, who led the effort in the House, Senator Klobuchar and Blunt, co-sponsors of the legislation in the Senate, and all my colleagues, Pat Leahy and House members as well that are here, thank you. Thank you. Today, I'm going to sign into law the bill you sent to me that awards the Congressional Gold Medal to the United States Capitol Police, the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department, and other law enforcement for their service and defense of our democracy on January the 6th. To all of them, on behalf of a grateful nation, thank you, thank you, thank you for protecting our Capitol. maybe even more importantly, for protecting our Constitution and saving the lives of duly elected members of the Senate and the House and their staffs. In these moments when we're still debating, these were tragic hours back then. You stood in the breach. You did your duty to defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. The events that transpired were surprising, but not your character or your courage, Chief, and all your men and women. I didn't grow up with any of you, but I know you. You're just like all the women and men I grew up with, particularly at that time it was men, in Scranton and Claymont. Places where the neighborhood I lived in, you became a cop, a firefighter, or a priest. I wasn't qualified for any of them, so here I am. But look, all kidding aside, I got to know you. You're the same ones after a ball game in a visiting field. Come walking out of the gym if you want, and you may get jumped by the other team or their supporters. You may be all by yourself, the only one standing there when you watch 6 people jump one of our teammates. What the hell would you do? You jump in. You jump in knowing you're going to get the hell beat out of you too. Police officer is not what you do, it's who you are. I got to know you after 36 years in the Senate, 8 years as Vice President. You're always there. It's not a joke. It's not some hyperbole that suggests duty, honor, service. That's who you are. That's who your dad was. That's who your dad was. And America owes you a debt we can never fully repay. But I know receiving this award is bittersweet. On that day, more than 140 law enforcement officers suffered physical injuries, an untold number suffering emotional toll. 15 of you were hospitalized, and others were lost forever. May their souls rest in peace and rise in glory. I know each time you put on that shield in the morning wherever you show for work, your families wonder whether they're going to get a call that day, a call they don't want to receive, hoping you come home safely. And it breaks my heart. Insurrectionists at the Capitol of the United States of America. Jill and I would never have thought we'd have to join you in the Capitol Rotunda, not once but twice. Once to honor Officer Brian Sicknick, who lost his life, and a second time to honor Billy Evans, who lost his defending the Capitol as well. Both gave the full measure of their devotion to the country at the United States Capitol. Their families are here today. I know from similar, yes, we should clap for the families. I know, like others may know from personal experience, getting that phone call. It's nice to be honored and have those who you lost remembered. But it's tough to be here because it brings back everything like it happened 10 minutes ago. So I offer you not only our condolences, but recognize your courage, the courage of your children. And you have our most profound gratitude. You know, the fallen, in my view, are casualties of a struggle literally for the soul of America. A struggle that they didn't start, a struggle we didn't seek, and a struggle that by the grace of God will win. As I said, I know this is a bittersweet moment. As proud as Brian and Billy as you are, it still brings back pain the moment it happened. And also, we offer our prayers for the families of the Capitol Police officer Howard Liebengood. Those who've been around a while, we knew his dad. Knew his dad well. He was Secretary of the United States, Sergeant at Arms of the United States Senate. We also pray for the families of the Metro Police Officer Jeffrey Smith. For anyone out there facing trauma, for anyone still struggling, please know there is help available. My fellow Americans, the tragedy of that day deserves the truth above all else. We cannot allow history to be rewritten. We cannot allow the heroism of these officers to be forgotten. We have to understand what happened, the honest and unvarnished truth. We have to face it. That's what great nations do, and we are a great nation. In the past weeks and months, we've heard the officers themselves, some of whom are here today, describe what happened. The threats, the violence, the savageness. When asked what he was fighting for, Officer Hodges, who's here today, stated it eloquently. One word: democracy. My fellow Americans, let's remember what this was all about. It was a violent attempt to overturn the will of the American people, to seek power at all costs, to replace the ballot with brute force, to destroy, not to build. Without democracy, nothing is possible. With it, everything is. So, my fellow Americans, we must all do our part to perfect and to preserve our democracy. It requires people of goodwill and courage to stand up to the hate, the lies, the extremism that led to this vicious attack. It requires all of us working together, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, on behalf of the common good to restore decency, honor, and respect for our system of government. And above all, it requires all of us to remember who we are at our best as a nation, as we see it in the law enforcement officers who are here today, the best of our nation. Congressional Gold Medal awards today will be housed in 4 locations. 2 medals will be displayed at the U.S. Capitol Police Department and the Washington, D.C. Metro Police Departments, so that every morning you officers walk by seeing those medals and remember the heroism of their colleagues and the importance of their work. The 3rd medal will be displayed at the Smithsonian Museum with a plaque honoring all law enforcement that protected the Capitol on January 6th, so all visitors can understand what happened that day. And the 4th one will be displayed at the Capitol itself to remind us all who served and currently serve there, and all who visit, the honor and the service of those who protect and preserve all of us. I'll now ask Speaker Pelosi if she's willing, and Senator Klobuchar and Senator Blunt, Chief Conte and Chief Manger, and the other officers here today to join me as I sign this bill into law. May God bless you all, and may God protect our troops and all those who serve watch over our democracy. Come on, everybody.
You probably want Leahy.
Yeah, come on, sure. Patrick, come on.
That was very powerful.
Oh,
a lot of panic. Oh, I know. Okay, come on.
Yeah, I like the second college.
This is a silly way to do this. Mommy will explain this to you later. So I can give
There you go. We'll fit in.
Now he's 50.
That one.
You put the top on.
Oh, you have it?
Thank you so much.
I'll help her there.
Nance.
So we got Amy over here.
Amy.
Roy behind you.
Right here.
Roy. Now, you gotta help me out. Okay? Would you give a pen to the other people back there, and then I'll get pens from you, okay? All right? And you hand them out now, right?
It's going to take us one.
Thank you, sir.
No. You know, the truth of the matter is, we've all been around home. A lot of
But this comes as those vaccine passports are facing scrutiny even from within the Democratic Party. The mayor of Boston, for example, a Democrat, went way overboard with the outrageous suggestion that the idea of vaccine passports is reminiscent, get this, of people having to show their papers in the days of slavery. After an expected explosion of negative reaction, acting Mayor Kim Janey apologized for her dopey remarks. So, Dana, I guess you didn't get the memo that you never compare anything to slavery or the Holocaust unless it's slavery or the Holocaust.
Well, there have been so many walkbacks this week. I feel like we're watching like Michael Jackson do the moonwalk. I mean, this is unbelievable how many times that those people are saying something and be like, oh, actually, I don't mean that. And actually, you know, Dr. Francis Collins was another one who said you need to wear masks if you're vaccinated inside your home if your children are around. The next day, I was like, actually, no, you really don't need to say that. There's just so many different things here. This one, I actually think that she said what she believed.
Oh, me too.
And then the blowback was such that she said, actually, maybe I shouldn't have said that, because obviously it is hyperbole and over the top. But there is depth of feeling in urban America by Black Americans that feels that they don't want to get the vaccine. I wish that they would reconsider. I want everybody to be safe. I want us to be able to get through this and not have more variants. But the suggestion, what she just did, is basically ensure that even people will be more resistant, because now then you add in pride. And that's hard to get over.
Well, I think that obviously foolish and ill-advised remarks, Dagan. On the other hand, putting aside the no-fly list, I like the idea that I'm going to be in a crowded airplane with only vaccinated fellow passengers. I don't want to fly elbow to elbow with someone unvaccinated.
Why? You're vaccinated. I don't understand.
What if you get some snot on me and I go home to my grandchildren?
What if somebody has hay fever and is vaccinated? You're still going to have snot on your jacket.
Well, at least it'll be
it's
snot
not
that doesn't
transmitted
kill
by
people.
snot on your jacket.
Right. The irrational left seems to be saying that an unvaccinated person poses a mortal threat to a vaccinated person. This is a cocktail of lunacy with a heap and helping of hysteria. This woman, that you're talking about, let's talk about the terror no-fly list, because she's saying that unvaccinated people are terrorists. The liberals that find fascism in everything are the actual fascists. That's what we're talking about.
I think that you could not be more misguided, and I really like you.
You're vaccinated. Don't worry about the unvaccinated people. You're fine, buddy.
But I am so keen on this idea because we've got to stop. You know, the virus is, metastasizing. It's becoming different. It's changing because of people being unvaccinated, allowing 90+ million hosts Come on, Jesse. We got to work together.
That's your
here.
argument. Come on. Geraldo, no-fly lists are for terrorists. If you're saying that if you're flying with someone that's not vaccinated, that's like 0% chance you're going to die. But if you fly with a terrorist, it's a little more of a 0% chance.
She
Geraldo.
obviously
Geraldo, during the pandemic, when there was no vaccine,
concentrate on the point.
People were flying.
That's right.
People were crowded into aircraft, and there was no substantiated evidence of virus spreading in aircraft when there was no vaccine and people were flying. So now that 70% of the country is vaccinated, why should we change anything?
That's a good point.
Why should you change anything? Because what if you fly with kids, Greg? I know that you hate kids, but others of us are parents and grandparents.
Kids are doing great. Kids are doing great if you look at the stats. I'm going to quote Tim Dillon, a great philosopher. There are horrible things that this virus can do. The discussion isn't about that. It's about how to fight it without collapsing civilization. And right now, we're fighting the collapse. I want to go back to the whole idea of the...
Oh, that is hyperbole. Collapse of civilization.
When Geraldo accuses you of hyperbole, you have seen it all. So let me just get to my point here. We were talking about, I guess it was the mayor of Boston,
acting,
right?
Acting.
That wasn't necessarily hyperbole. The passport is unadulterated segregation by default. If you install it in any city, 70% of blacks will need to find another place to eat or drink. And if you don't see problems happening at the hostess stand, or you're crazy. This is going to make the brawls in the airports look like yoga classes. And what of the blacks and Mexicans who work in those establishments? By the way, how do you enforce this? What if I say I was vaccinated but I don't have my papers? How does that work?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Can you come back tomorrow?
It's that easy.
Can you go home and get it?
Geraldo, it's that easy when you run a restaurant. This is what you are doing is you are alienating a group of people because you don't have the balls to actually go and talk about the statistics. We spent months vilifying the white redneck down south for being stupid and ignorant because they didn't get their shots. But we dared not reach out to one of the largest segments of the population who definitely need to hear this message. Oh, you are out of line. Oh, yeah. All right, I have some good news. No, I'm actually talking about the stats that you are not aware of.
Changing the subject.
No. This is the subject. She was talking. She was saying,
I want people to be vaccinated.
We get it, Geraldo.
I don't want to be with people who are not vaccinated.
Mother Teresa of the five. We get it, all right? The good news is there's a promising treatment of monoclonal antibodies, and it's not a vaccine. It's a subcutaneous injection.
Subcutaneous.
That'll work. Yes, they call it the Cuomo jab because it's just a tiny prick.
No.
Subcutaneous.
What does that mean?
I never thought I'd hear that on the
Just right a little bit into the skin.
But what was your point in bringing that up exactly?
Because I'm trying to lighten the idiocy that you bring out of everybody.
Oh. I will allow you to withdraw that remark.
I refuse to withdraw it.
Oh,
sustained.
You can't handle the truth.
Coming up, CNN maybe can't handle the truth, facing a massive credibility crisis. Wait until you hear how the network wanted Chris Cuomo, my friend, to help his creepy governor brother.
Name dropper.
The liberal network has left. A new report says top brass there suggested